Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community, we were going racing with some supercharged D-Class cars. Our first race was at the Silverstone National Circuit and I had opted to drive the Holden Tirana. As we round turn 1 I had a rather scary sight in the rear view mirror. You don't want a Pontiac Aztek directly behind you at any point, but as we run in towards these next couple of corners, all fairly busy, although relatively clean. A couple of cars missing their braking points and ending up about a bit wide, but on the most part everyone made it through this opening lap. My Holden, much more of a handling built car and was struggling. This Silverstone circuit as the Corvette comes flying past, although we'd both go flying past an Alfa GTA. This Silverstone circuit is 3 long straights with a couple of corners at different points, so yeah, if you were lacking straight line speed you were going to be in a little bit of trouble around here. The Corvette trying to go 3 wide in the middle of the Civic and the Alfa Romeo. I spotted an opportunity to try and sneak up the inside, got a big kick of oversteer, would have to abandon that. The Civic would keep his position. Datsun did a little bit of exploring out in the grass. Corvette would come past. I was keen to try and make a move on the Datsun, very evenly matched the two of us, but I would be brave under brakes into the first corner and get the move done. Also putting some more cars between me and that Aztek, and that is always a useful thing to be doing. The Alfa very quick through the corners, but did struggle a little bit on the straights. Now, as ever, when we race these lower classes of vehicle, the racing itself tends to be very close, and the midfield battles are even more hectic than they normally are. This was still in the opening couple of laps. The blue Tirana trying to get a move done on the Datsun. The Camaro was flying through the field. There's a big dive up the inside, just about manages to pull the car up in time. The Datsun misjudges the back of the Holden ever so slightly, gives a bit of tap, holding very, very sideways, manages to keep it all together. The MX-5 tries to take the advantage on the inside out of that final turn, but the Mazda struggling a little bit with straight line speed here, couldn't do anything, and these two would be able to pull a little bit of gap down this next straight. Further back up towards the front of the field, this was the fight over 4th place, as the yellow Holden was leading the group. This purple Camaro having a look at trying to get past the Honda Civic. The Civic was doing remarkably well in this field as the Camaro goes to the inside, leaves the door open. Now I am more than happy to try and follow him through, although I get some more oversteer once more, and that would cost me some acceleration on to this straight. The Camaro would go blasting away, but can't ditch the Civic. The Civic was seriously fast in a straight line, although neither of them were a match for the blue Camaro in terms of straight line speed. The purple car is late on the brakes, runs that little bit wide. We're now going 3 wide. Small game of Civic ping pong going on as we head around this second to last corner. Now that helps me out as everybody here is busy squabbling, still trying to fit 3 cars into a relatively small piece of road. That helps me out and catch up to the group, having had that little bit of oversteer moment. Now we're very much 3 wide as we round that final corner. The blue Camaro is all across the curb, but there is space and he gets the pass done. Going past the purple Camaro and the Civic. It's a good move, brave move on the outside through there. Now the pair of them are going chasing after that Holden, although the blue Camaro not quite able to get that one stopped and bounces his way across the grass, ends up out very, very wide. The Holden will keep hold of his position for now. I find my way past the Civic as we come down this long straight. The blue Camaro, despite having had a little off, still got a lot of momentum coming onto this straight, and we go chasing after the Holden once more. Yeah, these muscle cars are a little bit too quick for our Tiranas to really be able to compete with them, but it was making for an interesting time. Up in second place, an Opel GT had been holding on to second for quite some time, although he was now coming under more and more pressure from the Corvette. The Opel was massively quick in a straight line, but was really struggling under braking. Now the replay showing the car is locking up. It isn't. You wouldn't be getting the car stopped at all if you were locking it up that badly, but it was struggling under braking. It just couldn't brake as late. You saw how far back the Corvette came and could make that pass. Yeah, the Opel very, very quick down the straights, but when there were some corners, losing a fair bit of time to the likes of the Corvette. I was having different problems with the Holden. While not ideally suited to this track, it was still doing okay. There was a secondary problem Yep, it was a very FailRacey car. It was really difficult to keep this thing on all 4 of its wheels if you found a curb at any point. It loved going up on its side. Now, Silverstone does not have particularly bad curbs, but even here, I was having issues with my car, and that two-wheeled moment would give the Civic an opportunity to fight back as we come across the start-finish line side by side. The Civic on the opportune line. I was trying to go around the outside. I actually turned in a little bit too soon and gave a bump to the Civic. The Honda's fine. I end up out a little bit wide at turn 1 and would lose the position. Yeah, going up on 2 wheels is less than ideal, and I wasn't the only one with the Holden either that was noticing that little problem. For whatever reason, they are, quite prone to going up on their side. Not a wet race, so we're not likely to actually roll the car over completely, but still something that could cost you some lap time. The Opel was clinging on to 3rd place, but in the closing stages of the race, the blue Camaro would catch up. I've already seen how fast this Chevy had been in coming through the field. Even it could not quite match the Opel in terms of straight line speed, but it didn't really need to. It could still stay close enough to the Opel down these straights, and as soon as we came to a corner, the Camaro so much more composed through the turns would go, well, straight around the outside of the Opel as the Opel wiggles its way onto the start-finish straight at the front, and it would be perhaps a slightly surprising winner as a Ford Bronco would go on to take victory. Having started out at the front, would vanish away from the rest of the field. I believe the Corvette and Camaro were slightly quicker and slightly catching towards the end, but they had so much work to do to even try and get close to the Ford. It was never going to be doable in the number of laps. So an impressive victory for the Bronco. The closest of finishes, though, this would go for our 14th place, I think. These guys were fighting. The Tirana had been trying to fend off the Integra, but a huge slide around that final. You don't want to be going that sideways at the final corner there. Would allow the Acura up the inside. Lamborghini doesn't have the straight line speed to compete with these two, and the Integra would take the position. A good little battle was going on back here, and in general throughout the field, as ever, we see with these lower class racing, plenty of action going on wherever you looked. Race number 2, and we would head to the Brands Hatch circuit. The poor little Fiat would stall on the line. Amazingly, everybody managing to scramble around and avoid it. We had a Ram Runner in the mix. That is a terrifying sight to have. It's almost as bad as having an Aztec directly behind you, is to have one of those giant Ram Runners. Land Rover Defender was in the mix. I was doing my thing and being up on 2 wheels as we leave this second corner. Now, Brands Hatch does have some nasty curbs, and well, yeah, the Holden was to have some big issues. A little bit of lag and bumpiness through turn 3 sees my Holden out very wide and sideways. We were 4 wide at one point coming down this next section. Not a place that you particularly want to be 4 wide. We're also 3 wide further back, with the Ram Runner getting stuck in trouble. It was mayhem. It was absolutely mayhem around this circuit. Good fun mayhem, but completely and utterly crazy as we now head back onto the very short start-finish straight. There's a Ram Runner out on the grass and plenty of shuffling for position. I had found myself stuck battling with one of the Dodges. Of course, around the corners, my Holden significantly faster. The Ram Runner certainly not that slow in terms of straight line speed. I do manage to sneak my way up the inside and get the pass done, as I now have to go chase after the other one. And there's an MX-5 to be contending with. The other one, well, kind of takes himself out of contention with a humongous 2-wheel moment. Not the only one having big issues with a vehicle going up onto its side. Unsurprising in the case of the Ram Runner, a little more surprising in the case of the Holden. But yeah, there you go, and I had a fair bit of work to be doing in this one. Further up, and this was, well, from second back, the Celica had got a nice little bit of a margin up at the front. A Fiat Dino holding on to second. A Lotus Elan was in there. The Defender was doing very, very well out here, trying to chase down a Holden with a mega amount of acceleration, and the help of the Elan having an issue across the curb and almost spinning the Defender, would try and get 2 positions in one go, having to go the long way around the final corner. Scirocco is up in there getting involved. Alfa Romeo's trying to sneak up the inside. Alfa Romeo's not going to find any space through there. The Land Rover's acceleration is absolutely phenomenal as it comes off the final turn. Despite having been sideways off the final turn, still got better acceleration than just about everything. He's almost 3 wide for this run into the first corner. The Holden would lose 2 places down that start-finish straight. The Defender was really holding its own out here. It was really making the most of its crazy acceleration to keep up with these cars and set very, very decent lap times. Now the Alfa Romeo is trying to join in. The Holden's doing a little bit of a rally crossing. BMW's caught up to this group as we have a very, very sideways Land Rover again, getting a little bit of assistance. Further back, the Ram Runners, well, they were, as to be expected on a track like this, struggling a bit just to keep their cars, well, on the ground. To be honest, they did manage to find one another in the latter stages of this race, as first the white one's up on its side, and then the black truck's going to have some issues, a little bit more issues from the black Ram, as it very nearly ends up in the gravel trap on that final corner. Yeah, they certainly looked a handful to be driving around this circuit with their, well, proneness to being up on their side. I would have big issues with the Holden, with the curbs and going up on my side as well, hence why I was pretty much nowhere in this race. As we came on to the final lap, it was the Celica leading the way, but coming under increasing pressure from the Elan. The Elan being forced to go around the outside of turn 2, cuts back to the inside, but again, you're going to be stuck on the outside line for turn 3. Fortunately for the little Lotus, the Celica just couldn't quite pull the car up in time, trying to take a bit too much speed on a too tighter a line into that turn 3. Go for an explore across the grass. The Toyota throws itself at the chicane, but is all out of shape on the exit there, unable to do anything about the Elan. And of course, the Elan is always going to have some pretty decent acceleration as he comes down this final straight. The Lotus would go on to take victory. Celica in second place ahead of the Fiat Dino in third. Good showing from the Fiat. Don't see them that much in races. Our final race would go to the Hockenheim short circuit. Having had plenty of fun and close racing so far, what better place to finish off? I found myself rather surrounded by SUVs at the start of this one, very much boxed in through the opening corner with the Jeep Wagoneer and a Land Rover around me. Not an ideal situation, trying to go to the outside of the Defender, as once more it is incredibly crowded through this second corner. The Ram Runner's there as well for good measure, just to make you feel tiny. I mean, the Holden Tirana certainly isn't the smallest car here, yet it feels tiny when you're racing against these sort of vehicles. I'm around the outside of the Ram. BMW is keen to come with me, as is a Toyota, a few other vehicles as well. You just get to the inside, and once the car is stuck, just hung out to dry like that, just the whole train of vehicles are going to come pouring past, and I was up into fourth place. Pretty decent start actually from my Holden. The Alfa Romeo misses its braking points, ends up out wide, but not quite in the sand. The Jeep is keen to have a look at the Alfa, but too far back as we come up towards my favourite of the overtaking spots. I have the grip, can pull my car to the inside and get the pass. I think the Jeep might have locked up its back wheels. It was going a little bit sideways. I slightly straightened it out in the braking zone. The Wagoneer, still not giving up, tries to get to the inside of my Holden, has a sniff but doesn't quite have the acceleration to keep up with the Tirana behind. Toyota and BMW are going side by side into the first corner. Toyota making up the position. Now, we said the midfield was frantic at Silverstone. That was nothing compared to Hockenheim. Now, I love this track because of the plentiful overtaking opportunities, and in these early laps, they were certainly being used. This Fiat 8V trying to find a way past, but there is just so many cars here. They're 3 wide with the Ram Runner stuck on the outside. The Fiat still busy trying to find a way past the GT86. The Celica is busy up ahead trying to make a move. There's a Chevy Monte Carlo going side by side with a Land Rover down towards the hairpin. It's just everything is going on in this midfield group. There's a Camaro getting involved in all of this. Celica's gone for a bit of rallycross, gets stuck out on the dirt, and you just can't rejoin as you're coming up towards this sort of second to last corner area. It was absolute carnage. Now there's a Volvo and a Pontiac Aztek for the Fiat to try and find a way past. At the front, things were actually quite a lot calmer. Lancia Fulvia was leading the way, had a nice little gap back to the Alfa Romeo, and my Holden, I was busy trying to find a way past the GTA, but there was, as ever, the curbs being an issue. See how much of a problem the Tirana has. I've never had a vehicle have such strange issues with the curbs. The rear of the vehicle was fired up into the air as I ran across them. It's not the car going up on its side, it was just fired into the air. The BMW then goes exploring as we come to this back straight. Yeah, I lost so much time was lost from me having issues on curbs. A little bit of a shame. The Tirana much better suited to this track. There was still plenty going on further back. This Alfa Romeo and Celica would battle for much of the race. Up ahead, the Land Rover Defender was gradually losing ground, dropping through the field, fighting with a Toyota. The Land Rover gets brave, and it can carry some very, very good speed, this Defender. It's around the outside of the final turn. Both him and the Toyota slowing each other down. The Alfa Romeo is going to get to the inside, easily breeze past the Land Rover in a straight line. It's to the inside of the Toyota as we round that first corner. There was, plenty of cars trying to fit into very, very small pieces of a racetrack as we come up towards turn 2. The Alfa Romeo just not quite close enough to dive up the inside. The Land Rover will close in through the corners, but he's very, very slow down these straights. And once more, the Alfa Romeo is now fighting with that Celica, the Toyota, to the outside. If you can hold it around the outside here, you will be to the inside for the next corner. The Alfa Romeo gives him space, but the Celica not quite able to get far enough alongside. There's a little bit of a bump between the pair of them on the exit. Still the Celica unable to get to the inside. The Land Rover, is still there. Fiat 8V is coming to join in. Having lost time with my bouncing across the curb, I was back up behind the Alfa Romeo, but a Camaro was coming, and the Camaro was bloody fast. As I ran a little bit wide chasing the Alfa Romeo, the Camaro would sneak up the inside, and the Alfa drove even wider than I did, but I couldn't really capitalise on it because there was a great big muscle car on the inside. Run down towards the hairpin. The Camaro will go defensive. The Holden was that little bit better, perhaps, through the turns than the Chevy, but I just didn't have the acceleration or the speed to compete with that Camaro as we round this penultimate corner. And I was playing my primary focus in this race was keep off the curbs rather than make progress forward, which did hinder me a little bit at times. Further back, and the utter chaos continued, really. Jeep Wagoneer was still holding on relatively well in this race, but was creating quite the train behind him as the AE86, the Celica, the Fiat 8V and the Alfa Romeo SZ would all be wanting to try and find a way past it. But when you have such a big group of cars trying to find a way past you, they're inevitably ending up fighting one another, and that helps the lead car build a little bit of a gap as we've got a solid block of 4 vehicles rounding one of the quickest corners on the track. The 8V and the Toyota to the inside. The Celica's trying to cut back on the AA86, doesn't realise there's a Fiat on the inside. They bump together. That cost the Fiat a little bit of momentum. The Alfa Romeo will go and claim the position as they run back into this penultimate corner. And because they're all so busy fighting one another, the Celica goes exploring across a big slide. Even the Toyota there having a little issue across the curb. The Alfa Romeo will pick up the pieces there. Because they're so busy fighting one another, you're just losing time to the Wagoneer. You can see the gap that the A86 has made up, having just had a corner of peace. Is so busy fighting one another, the Jeep could hold on to its position. It wasn't just the Wagoneer that was creating quite a train. This was a giant group of cars. Normally we see groups of 2 or 3 that stay together throughout a race. This was just a huge group of cars that remain close for the entirety of the time. Sometimes cars might escape at the front or new vehicles would join. It was absolutely ridiculous. The Volvo was leading the way at this stage. Aztec behind. There's a GT86. There's another Celica. There's a Land Rover. Involved there's a Ford Bronco, a Fiat X19, Monte Carlo towards the back that were just constantly exchanging position. The Volvo ridiculously fast, accelerating, but was really struggling through the turns. You can see how far ahead the Volvo was before they came into this final sort of stadium section. The Aztec is right there, having a look, trying to find a way past on this final turn. The Land Rover's busy fighting with the Toyota behind, and now we come to a straight, and the Volvo will bugger off. The Land Rover's going to get to the inside of the GT86 to move up a position as everyone's being bounced onto two wheels across that turn 1 curb. The Fiat's around the outside of Chevy in the background. It was absolutely crazy. At the front, things were much simpler for the Lancia Fulvia, even with running a bit wide at the hairpin on this final lap. Lancia started out front. Me and the Alfa Romeo kept close for a lap or so, then we busied ourselves fighting and didn't really quite have the pace to keep up with the Fulvia. The Camaro would come home in second, was fractionally faster than the Lancia, but again, ran out of laps to really do anything about catching it. The Alfa Romeo coming home in third, with my Holden in fourth. Yeah, we had a relatively calm time of things compared to, well, further back. This group of cars would eventually pass the Wagoneer, although the Jeep would get the Celica back at the hairpin on this final time around. Coming towards this very last corner, the Alfa Romeo leading the train, the Toyota right tucked in under the bumper but unable to do anything about it. The BMW up ahead in fifth had a very, very lonely race. The Alfa Romeo would take sixth. Fiat 8V did well. Never really see 8Vs, very difficult cars to get working in, well, just about any class. But yeah, the 8V did well or to get into that battle and to stay where it did. This group was still at it. On the final of laps, the Land Rover would get to the inside of the Aztec. The Aztec, unfortunately, just running out of road and plummeting towards the back of this group. The Land Rover was in prime position for trying to find a way past that Volvo. If it could get a good run out the final turn, it might have the acceleration to get past the Volvo. However, makes a mistake under braking into the second to last corner. Fiat's having a go at the Bronco. The Celica would pounce, do a good cutback on the Land Rover, and the Celica tries to go around the outside of the Volvo on the final turn. He can't do it. The Volvo's got too much speed, but the Celica would beat the Land Rover across the line. It was just ridiculous racing going on back here, but really rather good fun. And as ever, Hockenheim had once more proved to be a immensely fun race. These were some seriously good racing, some of the best racing we've had for a while. Just huge groups of cars battling in this one, not just sort of individual battles going on, especially at Hockenheim. Such large groups of cars fighting for such a length of time as well. The lower class of racing is really rather good fun. My Holden had some issues. There was a lot of two-wheeled issues and a lot of curb issues that I would rather have not had, but yeah, not my greatest of builds, but yeah, it was still competitive enough to have some fun with. However, that is going to be it for this week's Versus Community. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 15th of September. We are going to go racing with B-Class German cars. If you would like to sign up and take part in that, then you can via our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace Versus the Community section, and you can sign up in there. But that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.